Hey guys, what's up? Drago Stoica here from Creative Wizards, Bucharest, Romania. And we are here today in the Creative Wizards studio to share with you our experience about the evolution and the transition from the last 10 years in our photo gear. I am sure a lot of you have been passing through the same stages. Some of you were, some of you are, and some of you probably for sure will be in the future. So, we've been for the last 10 years Nikon shooters. Here on my left side, your right side, is all the Nikon gear that we still use and we still have. And here on my right side, your left side, is our brand new Sony gear that we have bought in the last 3-4 months. So, how did this happen? And what was our evolution? First of all, I want to start with an advice that I got from my dad. My dad and me being at our base engineers. So, thinking like engineers, my dad from my childhood gave me the following advice. No matter what the brand of the tools are, you got to choose the tools that are most suited for you. Doesn't matter that it's Canon, Nikon, Nikon, Sony, Pentax, Fujifilm, whatever. You must choose the right tools for your needs, your job. Don't choose them by brand. Choose the best tools, the best cameras and lenses in our situation that you can afford and that are best suited for your needs. Ignore the brand. You don't gain anything by following a brand. I don't want to be a hypocrite here. If Sony comes tomorrow and asks me, Dragos, will you be our Sony ambassador? And you will have this and these advantages. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I will think about it. I don't want to lose an opportunity to gain something. But 99.99% of the end users of the cameras don't gain anything by choosing one brand or other brand. You must choose the tools that's best suited for your needs and whatever you like most. So, 10 years ago we were shooting with only 100% Nikon gear. Me and the other guys that made up the Creative Wizards brand here in Romania. And we started, I remember in 2010 we had D700 from Nikon, the very first of the full frame cameras released after the D3. We had a crop one, I think it was the D90, old camera, etc. And if you would have asked us in 2010, 2012, would you buy something else? I would have thought that I had just another opportunity. If I didn't want to shoot with Nikon anymore, I had to switch to Canon, which I have my reasons that I don't like that much as Nikon anyway. So it was Nikon or Canon. Professional, amateurs, whatever. 99% were between Nikon and Canon. And if you would have asked me, would you buy third-party lenses like Tokina, Tamron, Sigma? In 2010, 2012, even 2015, I would have said probably no, because I've tried them, I tested them, and they weren't so fast in focus. Some of them were sharp, but others were not, and I was like, man, Nikon is the most expensive, but is the best. And we always tried to save money and buy only Nikon lenses and only Nikon bodies. And this was okay. In that moment, it was okay. We don't regret that. They did a tremendous job. And let me just tell you what was our evolution in Nikon gear. So in 2010 we had the D700 and some crop cameras. In 2012 we bought the D800, which is not here because we sold it 2 years ago. And this was in March. In March 2012 I remember we bought the D800 and it was amazing. We thought it was a major leap forward from the D700. 36 megapixels, great dynamic range, great colors. ISO 100, great stuff. Decent focus system, it was great. In the autumn of 2012, we also bought the new D4, which was the top pro body. It was great, it was fast, the most accurate focus, the best speed, great ISO performance. We had the experience with the previous D3S from a friend of ours. It was great, we liked it. Okay, and this D4 and this D800 helped us in our work from 2012 until 2018. So for 6 years we used these two bodies alongside with a D600, a D750, which we bought the next years to complete our gear. And we used 99% Nikon glass. We had the 1424, the 2470, the 7200, of course F2.8, nano coated, the Holy Trinity, that we like to call it. We had and we still have the Nikon macro lens 105, which is a great lens, and I had this from 2010. It has 10 years and it still works like a charm. It's still very sharp, even on the D850, the new D850. This is a keeper. We had everything that we needed in those lenses. And if you would have asked me, again I repeat this, if you would have asked me, are you going to buy Sigma Tamron Tokina glass, I would have probably said no. Why? Nikon is the best. Anyway, so in 2018, 2 years ago, we sold the D800 and we bought the D850 that's here right now, and we're gonna keep this because it was again a major leap forward from the D800. D850 came with a brand new sensor, 46 megapixels, even better dynamic range, ISO 64, a better focus system, illuminated buttons, tilting rear LCD, and so on. So it was great. We think we did a good choice to replace the D800 with the D50, and alongside we kept going with the D4. And at the beginning of 2019, we decided we will buy a Z6, the Nikon Z6 that is right there filming me right now with the 35mm Z mount lens. Majorly because we wanted a good Nikon camera for video, and until they released their mirrorless cameras, Nikon didn't have any really decent video capabilities. But with the new mirrorless system on Z mount, they are getting there. Okay, so we were anxious to stick to Nikon, of course, because we had a lot of Nikon glass and we wanted to keep the compatibility and don't spend a lot of money on different mount, different brand, etc. From 2017, I think, that was a turn point when we discovered that the Sigma New Art series are really damn good. Until then, I would have not buy anything else but Nikon, but Sigma came from the back with the Art series, which is great, and the Sport series for sport and long focal length, and replaced a lot of our Nikon glass, the zooms, the 2.8 zooms. We decided we prefer fast primes f1.4, f1.8, and in time we remained with just one Nikon glass, and that's the 105 macro lens, because Sigma is better and cheaper, so why not choose that? Of course, there are always the debates about focusing on a DSLR body. Sigma has to do reverse engineering, also for Nikon, also for Canon. The focus is not like right there, you have always to fine tune it, etc. Yeah, we encountered that problem on some of our lenses combined with some of our Nikon bodies, but it wasn't a big issue for us. We managed to get through it and to have tech sharp photos and don't have too many misses in our shoots. So, like 2 years ago, we started to sell our Nikon glass, kept the D850, kept the D4, bought in 2019 at the beginning the Z6. We used it at the beginning with the F to Z adapter to use all the Nikon F mount glass. And what we have here today is exactly what remains. And this is, let me get it like that. This is the Sigma Sport 60 to 600, which replaced my old 150-600. This is the 85 1.4 Sigma Art for Nikon F mount. This is the 14 to 24 f 2.8 Sigma, which replaced exactly her sister, the Nikon 14 24 f 2.8 nano coated, but that's an old lens. And that lens was great on the D700, was pretty decent on the D800, but the old Nikon 14 24 f 2.8 didn't resolve enough resolution on the D850. So I sold it and bought the Sigma Art 1424, which is a great new brand new lens with a much better optic recipe, which resolves without a problem the resolution of the D850. Again, we have here a 35mm 1.4 Art series, an all Sigma fisheye, the 15mm f2.8 full frame fisheye, which is still great, decent cheap. We have here the 20mm Art f1.4, and the last one, but not the least, is the 135mm f1.8 Art from Sigma on a Nikon F mount. Great lens, we love it for portrait photography. And this little guy here, this is the f2.1 adapter that we use for this little guy here, which is the Nikon J4. And the Nikon J4, which replaced my old J1, were bought for only one purpose: to shoot a very long distance for very far away objects, like the moon, because I love wildlife photography and I like using very big focal lengths sometimes. We bought the J4 because it has the 18 megapixel sensor and the 2.7 crop sensor. So a 2.7 crop sensor, 18 megapixels on a, let's say 600 with a 1.4 times teleconverter gives you approximately almost 3000 millimeters equivalent lens. So I got some nice shots of the moon. I will leave you guys more than one link below in the description of the video with some of my albums with different gear combinations to see what photos we gained in the last years. So this is what we still have today, and it's still helping us shooting with the Nikon bodies, and we love these lenses. We still love them because they are great. For example, the Sigma 60 to 600, which replaced the 150-600, which replaced two prime super telephoto lenses that I had and I used a couple of years ago. In 2012 I bought the 600 F4 VR from Nikon. I know it's crazy, expensive, big, very heavy lens, but it was great. It was fast, it was tech sharp, but wide open at F4, and I was just crazy about getting the ultimate prime super telephoto lens for my birds and planes and whatever photos I was trying to shoot with at least 600 millimeters. And I kept it and did a lot of gym workout with it for the last couple of years after I bought it. I bought it in 2012 and I sold it in 2016. And in 2016 the kid in me, the child in me, couldn't help it, and I bought the 800mm F5.6E FL VR. I know, crazy expensive lens. I still paying the bank loan for that lens, but my crazy stuff, you don't have to do extreme stuff like this. And that was a great lens. It was, even if it was 800, it was f.5. It was lighter than the previous 600 because it was this new optic recipes that Canon, Sony and Nikon are developing, larger lens, but lighter ones, and still a great super telephoto lens. I will leave you guys a link below in the description of the video to see some cool shots with that lens on different bodies, focal lengths equivalent with 1000, 1500 on a D500, 3000 millimeters on this J4. I caught some dragonflies. Who said you can't do macro with a super telephoto lens? It's great to shoot with the J4 on 800 millimeters from 5 meters. You have a macro lens. Yeah, it was great, but heavy lens, expensive lens, you can travel with them very light, it's not easy. So eventually I gave them up, and for my wildlife and airplane shows and whatever big focal length photography, I chose these Sigma zooms. These kind of Sigma zooms, even Tamron have some lenses like this, the 150 600 VC, the G2 version, etc., which are pretty cool, didn't exist like a couple of years ago. Sigma had those Bigma, the 50 to 500, the 120 to 400. There were some zooms, but they weren't sharp. You had to close them down at least one step, and you didn't like that. You were losing light. You had to bump up your ISO. The bodies were okay at ISO, but not like the one that we encounter today. So you didn't have these great choices of great glasses from third-party brands 5 years ago or further in the past. But in the last years, this great series came up, and for us, the end users of photography gear, the choices multiplied. Just make the money, man, and you'll have from where to choose. So here you are in 2020, and what happened? We have some Sony gear on the table. Why did this happen? Because we bought the Z6 for video, first of all, at the beginning of 2019. And we were wondering, man, we had the D4 for 8 years now, almost 8 years. It's old, it's beat up, it still holds very good, it still delivers, but we want a brand new camera. And the D5, for example, from Nikon, didn't convince me that it was worth to pay the extra money, the extra bucks, sell the D4, buy the D5. I usually like very much that a camera doesn't have variant ISO. You know that if you shoot at ISO 100 and if you shoot at ISO 800, let's say, and you underexpose that ISO 100 photo with 3 steps, and you bump up the exposure in post, so you go with for the equivalent 800, 200, 400, 800, 3 steps, you will get almost the same amount of noise that you will have in the 800 ISO photo, exactly in the photo shot at ISO 100 and underexposed 3 steps. That's ISO invariant sensor. Well, the D5 didn't have such a sensor. And you may say, but Dragos, D5, D4, the top end series are made for speed, not for shooting landscapes with a great dynamic range sensor, etc. Yeah, but I still got used to this and I didn't like it. I just didn't like it. Yeah, the new focus system was great, 153 points versus 51 in the old D4. We have the system on the D850, but it just didn't cut it for me. Didn't worth it for me, the D5 versus the D4. So we were wondering, in 2020, we want to buy some new gear. We upgrade to what? So we were hoping Nikon will get out there with a Pro Z mirrorless body. Just something to compete with the Sony ones, because we got to admit Sony came right back from they don't have a past in photography. I wanted to say that they're past in photography, but they don't have it. Nikon and Canon are here for almost 100 years. I remember Nikon celebrating 100 years of business a couple of time ago. But Sony was anything else but cameras. Okay, they had TV, professional broadcast cameras. They had, some time ago, they were doing really hi-fi sound systems, even cheaper ones, etc. You know what Sony does, TVs, etc. But 10 years ago, in 2010, you weren't going to buy a Sony DSLR if you were really serious about photography, you were a professional and you were choosing your top of the game performance gear. You weren't going to buy a Sony. And then Sony changed the game in 2013 when they first launched their first mirrorless, the A7. And they really caught up our attention and gained more and more of the market, and they become a real good competitor for Nikon and Canon. I don't want to talk here about Fujifilm or Pentax or Olympus or other brands because they are not there. Nowadays, in 2020, our top brands are Nikon, Sony and Canon, for sure. 99% of us are thinking to choose gear from these three brands. So we thought, okay, what will be our replacements for the old gear? We wanted to sell our D4, we wanted to sell our D600, old bodies. What will we buy? Another Z6? No. A Z7 maybe? No. The same sensor, not the same sensor. A DSN sensor like the D50, but it's not helping us in our business. So I wanted better focus. I was enthusiastic about having a camera that can track and focus from one corner to the other and don't keep this old idea of focus system from the DSLRs cradled in the middle of the frame. So I had the opportunity to play with some Sony gear, and eventually this caught my attention very seriously. If you would have asked me 1 year or 2 years ago, are you going to buy some Sony gear? I have said probably not. Why? Sony, yeah, it's okay, they do great stuff, they made great stuff in the last years, but no, I will stick to Nikon. Yeah, that changed. And I come again to the advice that I mentioned you at the beginning of the video. Don't stick to a brand. You don't gain anything for that. Choose the tools that's right for you. Choose the car that feels great for you. Doesn't matter the brand of the car. If it's good for you, it's what you should buy. So we moved on to Sony gear, and in the last 4 months, we bought a A7R3, and I will tell you why I didn't get the new A7R4. We got the A9 Mark II because we wanted the best focus system, the fastest one, the best ISO, high ISO performance. We have here the Master G Lens 2470 because it's a great zoom and a great range. We have here the Sigma 105 105mm f1.4, which is a beast of a lens, great lens for portraits, just a big chunk of glass. And we have this 24 1.4 because we sometimes like to shoot in ambient light, in natural light situations, and sometimes that's hard in low light, and we use fast primes. And this is the last acquisition because my wildlife and airplanes and whatever long focal length passion photography for this kind of photography is always there. And this is our last acquisition. This is the new Sony 200-600 super telephoto zoom, and it has here on top of it the new Sony 1.4 teleconverters. And I will talk in a moment about this new stuff for Sony, which I think is great, and I'll tell you why. So this is how new Sony gear came into our home and into our business, and it's starting to shoot in parallel with our Nikon gear. And of course, many asked us immediately, are you switching to Sony? A lot of guys are switching to Sony. A lot of persons are switching from Nikon or Canon to Sony, or they are buying mirrorless. Yeah, mirrors, new mirrorless. What are you going to do? We are switching to Sony. We just acquisition also Sony. We don't want to give up our Nikon gear for good. We are waiting to see what Nikon is going to come up with. We like very much the D850, we like very much the Z6, and we love our new Sony gear. So of course I think we will sell some of the Sigma Art glass for Nikon because we are moving our heavy work on the Sony in the same focal length, but it's just a small portion. I will sell probably 3 or 4 of these lenses, and I will shoot with the Sony ones and keep the rest for the Nikon ones. and cover all the range. For example, I think the Sigma 60 to 600, it will be sold for sure, because this new 200-600 on the Sony, it's, I think, the best super zoom that's out there today. And I will make a future video comparing exactly the 200-600 from Sony with and without a TC 1.4 teleconverter versus the Nikon 200-500, because there is not another more proper equivalent, just the 200-500 from Nikon with a Nikon 1.4 teleconverter. And I have this 60-600 Sigma Sport, and I have also the Sigma 1.4 times teleconverter, and I will compare them because from what I saw in the last days with this big boy here, it's the best combo with a full frame body, super telephoto lens with or without a teleconverter versus any system that I used in the past. I must admit, I never tested and I never shot by myself with Canon gear. I didn't have an opportunity. I was not curious about Canon gear. Of course, Canon does great cameras also and great lenses. I'm sure they are there in the top 3 among Nikon and Sony. And I will not talk about Canon because I don't like talking about stuff that I didn't test it and I don't have it. But I've been shooting with this kind of zooms from Sigma for the last 2 years, replacing my older prime, very expensive super telephoto from Nikon's, and I was really pleased with them, because for this kind of money and this kind of versatility, carrying in your bag, passing through airports with ease, with a 60-600 super telephoto zoom in your bag, doing your stuff, they are pretty sharp, they are decent. Of course, they are F6.3 at the big end. This is also F6.3 at the big end. But they are decent. The new cameras are very capable in low light situations, so it's not such a big deal. But when I was shooting with the D850, when I was shooting with the D4, I've tried even a D5 from a friend of mine. Of course, if you're shooting in the same situations with a f6.3 lens, it's not the same fast focus that you will get from a fast f4 prime lens or a fast f2.8 prime lens. So the focus starts struggling. If you add a 1.4 teleconverter on an f6.3 lens, you get to f9, and that's when the stuff really gets messy. I don't want even to talk about the 1.7 or 2 times teleconverters because they eat up too much of your image quality and contrast, and you lose too much light, and I will just not use it. I've tried them, I don't like them, they are too much of a loss for me in image quality, so I just stick to 1.4 teleconverters. So I was used to shoot with fast primes, for example on Nikon systems, using or not 1.4 teleconverters, and it was okay, it was good. I remember experiencing the 600 f4 with 1.4 teleconverters on the D800 body, on the D4, and in good sunlight you had great focus. They were decent, even in tracking, in 3D tracking. It was good. On the D850, if you stick to a maximum of f7.1, f8, you can also, in direct sunlight, you can get decent focus. But for example, if I tried using a 1.4 teleconverter on the 60-600, so I'm shooting at f9 on the D850, of course, I'm making a point here. You're going to say, okay, but how about shooting with a 1.4 Nikon teleconverter on a Nikon lens on the Nikon body? Because everybody knows that native lenses on the same brand bodies should get better focus. Yeah, I tried 200-500 Nikon with 1.4 Nikon teleconverter version 3 on Nikon bodies, and they were pretty decent. Of course, the difference in brands and the reverse engineering should make a difference in focus speed or accuracy, but we are comparing all the systems that we have on our hands today. So this Sigma on the D850 or the D4 is not working that great from what I've seen in the last year shooting with them. Of course, if you have great light, great direct sunlight on your subject, doesn't matter if it's a human, if it's a bird, if it's a plane, whatever you're shooting, you can get decent focus. But I don't think you'll be able to capture birds in flight with too much a great rate of success. And then again, I just tried for 2 days now. I bought the 200-600 2 days ago and the teleconverter yesterday. And I played with them just for one day. And I got up there and tried it right away on the A9 because I heard it has the best focus in low light or on a closed f-stop lens. And I was really amazed comparing with all my experience from the previous 10 years. So this is also a f6.3 lens, which with the teleconverter of course is a f9 lens. Of course I shot with it on the both bodies without the teleconverter and it worked great, and it's very sharp for a $2,000 super telephoto zoom lens. Of course everybody knows that a $13,000-$14,000 prime 600 f4 that Sony has now, it's better. It's $11,000 more. You are going to pay something more for that money. Better models for faster focusing, better glass, 1.3 more step of light, of course, but that's $13,000. This is what you get for $2,000. It's what almost each one of us could afford. And I tried this one with a teleconverter because I noticed on the reviews on YouTube that it's great, and I put it on the A9. And here I would let you see some examples from yesterday's shootings in not the best light conditions. We had overcast weather over Bucharest, so it wasn't pretty sunny, and it was some haze in the atmosphere. And this is what it turned out to be. I'm really amazed of what a 850mm equivalent lens can do in not the best good light situations. And the A9 focus is amazing tracking subjects and keeping an eye autofocus on an f9 lens. I can't wait to get this out in the next weeks to shoot some real birds, some real good big focal length photography, and test it alongside the Nikon glass. But I'm sure this will win because with my 10 years experience of trying different combos for high focal lengths gear and subjects, this definitely looks amazing. So guys, if you find yourself in a transition phase, in this unknown decision phase where you are thinking what to do, should I stick to Nikon or Canon, should I stick to DSLR, because I think this is the great question that we find ourselves asking us today. What should I do? Is the DSLR market going to die? Will the mirrorless bodies replace everything? I can't know for sure, but I'm thinking that in 2030, another 10 years from now, there will be only mirrorless cameras. I don't see how the old system of a DSLR can stand the evolution, because the focus it's better when it's on the full frame, the full area. The A9 proves that you can have a great mirrorless camera. I know the D6 is here, the Canon 1DX Mark III is there, but they are still DSLR. The Canon 1DX Mark III can flip up the mirror and have face detect dual pixel on the sensor. So I'm buying a very expensive DSLR and I'm using it like a mirrorless? No, probably not. It's stupid to just spend that money and use it like this. Buy the Canon R, wait for the new R5, buy RF lenses and so on. I hope Nikon will get a move on and come up with a pro body so we can have a real good competition from Nikon for Canon and Sony bodies. Until then, I repeat once more, don't get pulled away by a specific brand. Choose whatever tools are good for you, and if you see this works better for you from today forward, you can give up some old gear, there's no problem. I know you lose some money in this exchange and it's not easy. We are doing it step by step. This month a lens gain some money from our work, switch another lens and so on. But everybody can do it. If you are an amateur, if you are a professional, just stick to whatever is best for you. And guys, if you can, from your friends, from borrowing equipment, take it for yourself and test it. I wanted to tell you why I didn't buy the A7R4, which is the better one, the newer one, more megapixels, a better focus system compared to A7R3, because I think from an engineer perspective that 61 megapixels are a little too much for a 36 by 24 millimeter sensor. They are really pushing it. You got to have faster shutter speeds, you got to have a very good piece of glass that can resolve more than 61 megapixels to have very sharp images. The ISO performance is like on the edge. Anyway, the more megapixel you have in the same surface area, the more demanding the camera is. I have a friend that has the A7R4 and tested it the same 200 to 600 lens on it. And when he saw yesterday that I bought it and I was shooting it, he said, "Hey, what's your opinion on it? Because I tested it on my A7R4 and I didn't was really that impressed." And I said, "Man, this is a $2,000 super tele lens, which is great. On the A9, blistering sharp. But you are testing it on a 61 megapixels full frame body. That's too much of a resolution that I don't think this lens can handle. If you want to resolve 61 megapixels, probably you should try the $13,000 600 prime f4 lens. So this is not for high megapixel count. On the A7R3, it's decent. I tested it yesterday also on the A7R3. It's decent, but of course you can see that it's less sharp for a 42 megapixel body than compared to the A9 on a 24. So guys, you got to take these scientific facts and physics limits into consideration when you are comparing gear. Don't have only expectations. Don't build your expectation too high and expect that any camera gear in any price range must resolve anything, because it's not like that. Let's be honest and remember and respect all the camera brands, because there are there is a ton of people behind all this gear that work very hard, thousands of hours of work, of passionate devotion and dedication, a bunch of mathematics and physics behind all this gear, and they are working to get you all this gear. It doesn't matter if it's Nikon, it doesn't matter if it's Sony, if it's Canon, Pentax, Fujifilm, Olympus, Phase 1, you name it, Hasselblad, etc. They are hard-working people that are trying to give you great equipment. Of course there are differences, and of course each of us is unique and have different preferences, but we got to respect all the players in the game, because it's a hard work. You don't have to like them, You have the liberty to choose whatever you like, but don't judge them. I just hate people, and I hear amateur or even professional photographers from time to time which talk too hard or too harsh for a brand or other brand. Ah, that Canon, oh that Nikon, ah Sony is crap, oh that I don't like because man, it's not right, because all of them are great hardworking people, and it's very hard to have a business to design this kind of gear, and you must understand and respect their work. If you don't like them, if you don't empathize with some features, you don't have to buy it. They don't oblige you to buy from them. You can choose whatever you like, move along, use whatever you need, and be happy, and have a great time shooting it out. So guys, thank you very much if you listen through all this long video. Of course, I didn't want to be boring, but I think a lot of you guys are passing through this kind of debates and judgments and think what to do next. First of all, have fun with your passion in photography or videography, and use whatever gear you like. I will leave down in the description links with different kind of shots, and in the future I will come up with the video that compares these two super telephoto lenses in the field. Thank you guys, have a nice day.